Hello and welcome to Sarcastic Videos. Today we're going to be talking about the Netflix original comedy special, Vir Das Abroad Understanding. The comedian, Vir Das, is a well-known actor and comedian in India, and he's actually, with this special, the first Indian-born comedian to do a special on Netflix. It's an interesting concept. What they do is half the show is in New York and half the show is in New Delhi. So he's telling the same jokes but to different crowds, and they intercut between the two different crowds to show the different responses. So it's an interesting concept. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because he is an actor with a heavy Indian accent, and it's sometimes I think the New York crowd just is a little slow to understand the jokes, because there's some funny things that he says that just seem to fall flat. So, but he is big in India. He sold out a stadium there. In New York, though, it's like a smaller club. He starts the show with like this cool song, and it's actually pretty funny. It's talking about how he's on Netflix, and it's about what the special that he's doing now and how it works. So it's a nice little way of introducing himself and introducing the concept of the show. And the reason he calls it a broad understanding is because it's essentially supposed to be about things that he just doesn't understand. So he starts out talking about Trump in the New York one, and then it cuts to him talking about the Prime Minister of New Delhi, or the Prime Minister of India, in the India stadium. So that's interesting, going back and forth like that. For the New York one with Trump, he's talking about how basically it's kind of like an arranged marriage, because for the people in the audience, their parents basically stuck them with this guy, which is kind of an interesting way of looking at things. And then for the New Delhi one, he's talking about terrorism, and he actually goes on to say that like it would be impossible to kidnap India's prime minister, because you wouldn't be able to find him, because nobody really knows where he is, because he's never working, and he always just flies New Delhi. He doesn't fly like his own airline or anything. I think it's called Air India is what he usually flies, is according to the comedian Vir Das anyways. And then, he also, going on the terrorism line, he says that there's no point in terrorists attacking the U.S. now, because he thinks that because the whole point of terrorism is to cause a state of confusion and disarray, and he thinks that there's no point. Like, America's already gotten that by voting in Trump. So that was interesting. It was funny to see that. Although I think the way that his jokes landed in New York, it kind of sounded like maybe there might have been a pro-Trump crowd there. It was hard to tell, because like it was funny, but the audience wasn't really reacting that much to it. And then he talks about like the differences between America and India and things like that, about the crowds, about coming to America, and even though like and celebrating a Christmas, even though it's not part of his religion, just because it's just so hard to not get involved in it with all the the pageantry and the festivities and things like that. He talks about how what a big deal it was for him to just have cereal for the first time, like regular normal cereal that's not cornflakes that they have in India. So that was interesting. Talks about like commercials and for food and things like that, and how they would never have something like that in India because of how terrible Indian food looks, even though it's actually pretty good. That's what he said anyways. I don't know from personal experience. And he has this whole story about like his first kiss, and how it was so awkward because in India they don't even let you, the Bollywood movies don't show that kind of thing. They just kind of cut it out. And then if you try to watch American movies, like your parents would fast forward any of the kissing parts. So it was interesting. It was a funny little story about how, how badly his first kiss went because of that. And then he has another thing about Skype, and how his fiance broke up with him over Skype, but she didn't do it like talking to him. She did it like through the typing. So he had to sit there and watch her type. And it would just keep saying typing, typing, typing. So that was funny. And overall, it's a pretty funny show. Like there's a couple of moments where he kind of pauses. He does this awkward pause, which I think is part of his shtick, but it doesn't seem to hit in the New York audience. It might be familiar to the India audience, but because they seem to get more laughs out of it. But with the New York audience, it just seemed a little more awkward, like they were waiting for him to follow up. And he does have some jokes. He doesn't go dirty too much, maybe a little bit, when he's talking about the commercials and how different they are from what he sees in India, and how they could actually, because of the way they're filmed, could turn on somebody. And it's funny because he goes a little lowbrow a couple of times, and each time he does, he kind of chastises himself publicly, saying how like he doesn't want people to go out of his show remembering that part of it, because he does go into things about racism and the differences between people and races and cultures and things like that, and you can tell that it's important to him to get that across. So when he does go lowbrow, he does publicly chastise himself, which is part of the charm. So overall, I would say that I would recommend this. It's not lowbrow. It's not hilariously funny, but it is good, and it is an interesting concept with the two different audiences and seeing how they react to the jokes. And he is a funny comedian. So this is the Netflix original comedy special, Vir Das Abroad Understanding, and it was just released on Netflix April 25th. So I'm gonna recommend it and give it a thumbs up on Netflix. For anybody else, you'll have to decide for yourself based on what I've said if you're interested in seeing it. So if you like this video, subscribe, share, and like, or all of the above. Thank you, and have a nice day.